away from it.
20 minutes left, and I'm not going to do it.
I mean,
The Order
it's
of the Seers. The Order
yeah.
of the Seers.
Well,
Hmm.
I have a question because I write and for but a trilogy. You're not going to continue it.
No.
Just going to stop. Why? I say that because everything's a trilogy, a trilogy, a trilogy, a trilogy. I mean, you can't continue. I mean,
It's funny. Everything feels like a series, a series, a series, a series, a series to me. Like when I'm looking.
yeah, I always
Yeah.
end at three. I mean, James Bond. There's like a lot of books.
Yeah.
Tarzan, a lot of books. But why does everybody feel like they got to stop at three?
You know, it's because that's where the story was. Like it's not that I wanted to stop. I sobbed like a baby when I wrote the last chapter. I mean, I went upstairs and I just cried. But this is the end of their story. And I think there's integrity in an organic, true beginning and end. You know what I mean? But if I had more stories, if I have more stories, believe me, I'm not trying to hold them back. It's just that for these characters, their story was told in 3 books, and there are possibilities for stories before Order of the Seers, and there are possibilities for stories after. I don't have those in my mind right now, but for the set of characters that you meet and follow in these 3 books, this is their story, and it is over.
So let me ask you this about the characters.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name 4 characters,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna tell me what's the first thing that pops into your mind.
Okay.
Ming.
My good friend Spot, ballsy.
Okay.
That's
Now, why is that? Why does that? First of all, why did you create Ming, and why that connection?
um.
Like,
You
where
know,
is that character in the story? Also.
all of the characters came to me. I can't really say that I created any of them. They like when I sat down to write the Red Order, which is where you meet Ming.
Mm-hmm.
She like I was thinking about that first chapter, and Ming just like her character in the book, she just hits you sort of face forward. Ming is a perfect person to confront Crane, who is my villain in the or one of my villains in the story. Ming is really based on one of my really good friends in college. Uh, we called her Spot, and that's a whole other story. And she was, you know, my friend, her name is Lee Kim, was raised to be a very proper Chinese girl. She came from a pretty affluent family in Malaysia. And Spot was not that girl. I mean, she would make grown men blush with the things she would say. I mean, I only know one phrase in Chinese, and it is a curse. Worst curse you've ever heard. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Spot taught me.
What about Marcus?
Oh, Marcus, leader, who
Okay.
I want to be when I grow up.
And Lily?
Hope.
And what inspired the hope? This character of hope. Why does this character bring out?
To me is hope,
Mm-hmm.
because Lily comes from a person, starts in the story as a person who is sheltered and is used to having, her brother, her mother take care of her. And throughout the 3 books, she comes from a person who is sheltered to a person who protects, and then ultimately to a person who sacrifices for the greater good. And to see her go from that change as someone who's just focused on her own internal journey to someone who is willing to sacrifice everything for the betterment of the world is a really, I'm really proud of her, because that's not who she started. And she wasn't a bad person, but she was your typical 13-year-old thinking about herself and just sort of what her little world is. And when I think about who she becomes, it makes me very hopeful, because she's very much a metaphor for kind of where I think we are, concerned with our little space in the world, and not recognizing the sacrifices that others have had to make for us to be who we are, and then taking that and building on it and moving forward. So when I think of Lily, it makes me hopeful.
And Alessandra?
Alessandra, pain and courage. And you can see why. I mean, she's a person who has a gift, but that gift has been used against her. She literally can't. At the beginning of book one, she cannot see herself as valuable. She sees herself as inherently flawed and I mean, almost demonic in a way. And also, the thing about Alessandra is she is, in a lot of ways, the conscience of the book. I think sometimes, as we look at evil and, Dean, what you're talking about, the state of our world, it makes it easy to hurt people because I think now more than ever, you don't see the consequences of what you do. You go online and you blast somebody, and you can call them any name. You never have to see how that affects them. We can push a button or we can, power up a drone and we can kill a whole village, and we don't ever have to be accountable for that in the sense that we see what we are doing.
Yeah, it's a scary thing.
Alessandra can't escape the consequences of people's actions. Literally, her visions, as she sees what happens, she sees the consequences in a very personal and intimate way. And so, her character bears the pain of that she cannot escape the consequences of what we do. Even when you're doing it for the right reason, there are still powerful and painful consequences. And she doesn't escape those. And it takes pain. She suffers pain, but it takes courage to see the consequences of what you do.
Now
I admire her for that.
I wanted to step back and now let's break down the concept, because I wanted to go from the characters and ask you about that and then say what it's about, because it's very interesting talking to you. I met you at Comic-Con again and again and again. And it's very interesting. You were really into these characters. It wasn't like, oh, I have this concept and here's the concept. Good versus evil, da 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 da. It was like, no, I have these characters.
Very Star Wars.
Yeah, very, very much. And and it's very interesting. Here's a group of people that were clairvoyant, and people were basically using their gifts for evil. Now, was it the characters? Because that's what I got from it. The characters created the story.
Yeah.
Or was it the other way around? Am I correct with saying that?
The characters create the story. I mean, 5 years ago, I was washing the dishes and I got this vision of this story. This man named Marcus Akita was walking towards me, and I knew his name was Marcus. He was walking towards me. He had a cataract-like film over his eyes and ash blonde hair, even though he's a black man from Tanzania. I knew he was a seer. I knew he was enslaved for that ability. I knew there were people all over the world who were suffering that fate. Like, that was my first concept of this. I was not looking for it. I wasn't trying to come up with anything.
Now tell the truth now. You're holding back on this interview. Because sources tell me that you were washing the dishes when you had this experience and you actually saw the whole book.
No,
you actually having a seer experience.
I was going to get to that. I was just
gotcha.
Marcus.
Journalism.
But I want to say, because when you talk about the characters and what drove the story, it was really them. It was not me at all. I had no plans to write a book. Certainly not science fiction. I mean, if you're a sci-fi fan, that's hallowed ground. You understand how hard that is to make that work.
Right.
So anyway, I knew that he was enslaved for this ability to see the future. I knew that he was given a drug named Liridium, and that name came to me that was the reason why he had this appearance. I knew there were people all over the world, who were suffering the same fate, and literally this entire world came to me. I could just see it in my mind, and I was so in love with the story. And I can say that because I didn't really come up with it. It just came to me. You know what I mean? And I'm such a fan of these characters and their journey. They inspire me. I'm so grateful that they chose me to tell their story. And from Marcus, I knew that there was this organization called the Guild that was actually orchestrating this enslavement, and this exploitation of these people. I knew that Marcus would partner up with a seer. I don't think I knew her name was Alessandra until I really started, maybe a couple weeks later, when I started trying to really sketch it out in my mind, and that he would partner with and escape. And I knew those first seers would change the world. Like it was just incredible. It was just amazing.